welcome back to U23. It's been a while, but we wanted to wait till after the summer of soccer ended before doing another episode. And also doing some personal matters like Robert going on vacation, which if you want to, you can talk about later. Um, but yeah, this is being recorded the day after the U20 Championship match. U.S. soccer, summer of soccer, they're calling it, is finally over, and it didn't go exactly according to plan for anybody. First, you had us get crashed out of the U20, Copa America in the group stage while hosting one of the biggest tournaments in the world. The Olympics, yes, it was our first time qualifying for it since the Beijing Games in 2008. It was the first time reaching the knockout stage since 2000, the Sydney Games. But that match against Morocco, losing 4-0, really does damper what was created by that group of guys. And then having the U20 team make it all the way to the final just to lose to Mexico, who, when you compare the teams that both teams play against, i.e., Guatemala, the U.S. should have been the ones to win. And yes, they were going to win until that very, very late goal, controversial goal, I should add. This is definitely one that we need to put behind us as quickly as possible. The only good thing that came out of it is that Gregg Berhalter was fired, and maybe there would be not just changes with the senior team, but from top to bottom. You got anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the U20 is probably the biggest positive you could take out of that, just because, I mean, you at least made the final there, but that's still a game that should have been won, but there were some definitely good moments there, much better than you saw at Copa or Olympics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going off the Morocco game again for the Olympics, we play against Guinea and New Zealand. Those should have been guaranteed wins, even with this group of guys, and that's what happened. Exactly, it was a clear win in both games. But losing that in that style against Morocco really does bring into question: did we really deserve to make it to the knockout stage? When you look at who else qualified, and it definitely was one of those that we just got lucky that we got grouped with New Zealand and Guinea, and that was even noticeable since the announcement of the group stage, who our opponents would be. Yeah, the U20 was probably the biggest positive. There is a lot of negativity right now on social media amongst U.S. soccer fans after that loss, saying that we're not to the standards and expectations and all this other stuff with the U20. Yeah, they didn't play their best game against Mexico compared to the other games, in my opinion. But that game was sealed. I imagine if we had gotten a win, that mentality would be a little bit different. Again, it was a very controversial go. But I would not say that these guys aren't meeting the standards, especially when the fact that we were missing a lot of key players like Noah Banks, Cole Campbell, the possibility of having Fidel Barajas make that switch, which apparently, according to Marcus C, is still on the table. You also have Joshua Wynder, who wasn't there. Diego Kochen. I mean, there's still plenty of players that didn't show up. So I would not just say that this U20 group isn't to the standards.
Yeah, I think the U20 group largely met expectations, although I would have expected a little more out of that Mexico game. I do think the goal they conceded was, to say the least, unlucky. I think that game should have been ended before that goal happened, but that's not what happened. So obviously it's just hypothetical at that point. But it's an unfortunate way to end what I thought was a fairly decent tournament. But I don't think they were like below standard necessarily.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the roster, those individual players, we'll just look at it real quick again. Again, we didn't have Diego there, but we still had a good group of goalkeepers. We had Ferry, who is a really good goalkeeper when it comes to playing with the ball. Boudry, who was outstanding. You also have Stone, which had only one start, but he was still good. But these group of guys should not determine our view on the U20. Again, like we already mentioned, some of the players that are missing. One of those players that was included into this roster that didn't have the best tournament, and it's the first one you see when you look at the defenders, and that's Luca Bambino. He was all right, but you could definitely tell by comparing him to some of the others, especially on that defense, like Harangue, Kohler, and Cobb. He wasn't to the standards, even though Norris was better, in my opinion, than Bambino. And I guarantee if we were able to have anybody that was eligible, Bambino would not be there. So he's just
Yeah,
another perfect example, in my opinion.
yeah, and then
But yeah, oh, go ahead.
no, I was sorry, I was just trying to see the roster better.
Yeah, this is the best one I was able to find. For some reason, they didn't really post it on the Twitter correctly.
Yeah,
I think they did it as an article, and that's why. But yeah, what was interesting was they didn't have Cobb and Hawkins play together more often. It seemed like it was Cobb and Norris. I don't know why we played Norris at center back, because that's not typically where he plays. He's a left back, and I think sometimes he plays in the midfield, as a six. I can't remember exactly where Dallas has him at times, but yeah, I would say that Cobb was ahead of Hawkins simply just because the
yeah,
times we did see him, he was better, and that was pretty much every single minute of this tournament we saw Cobb, not Hawkins. So it still was kind of hard to determine who was a better one. But I still think it's pretty close on who was the number 5 center back in this group. I would have liked to have seen Kohler a lot more. I do know that injury he picked up against Cuba didn't completely help with his ability to play, but I don't see why he couldn't start more games during that knockout stage. And it is very close between him and Harangue. And Harangue did have a good game tournament, but that few times that we have seen Kohler, I would have preferred him.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree on that for the most part. I mean, I do think the defense, at least what we brought, wasn't the deepest group, especially when we've just the way we've lined up makes that a lot harder, and someone's probably going to end up playing out of position in it. So I don't judge too much from that. But
yeah, the defense is definitely the best example of the quality of this group of guys, and not the whole entire group of players, because there's definitely more available
yeah,
defenders that probably would have been more worthy of the call up. But again,
yeah,
they had to
definitely.
work with what they got. But moving to the midfield, absolutely no issues whatsoever. I will say the top 2 was Nico, and then it was
Yeah,
Brooklyn.
definitely.
But Nico, as anyone who doesn't know, he was named the MVP of the tournament, and that was very much a worthy reward for him. He definitely was the best player for us, and he didn't play like a 18 or 19-year-old player. He played well above most of these players in this tournament. Maybe it will give San Jose a wake up call to give him a little bit more opportunities. I know he's been starting a little bit more, but hopefully they will give him the attention that he needs from clubs overseas, because he definitely needs to get over there. When you want to say who should be the next player to go to Europe from this group, Nico's right there.
I think it's got it. Yeah, Nico would be definitely my highlight of the group. And yeah, I do. He needs to get more minutes with San Jose and get to Europe sooner rather than later, because I think he can be a pretty good player. And I mean, San Jose is not having a good season, so there's really no reason he shouldn't be getting more minutes with that team. They're last in the West right now, so
I think he kind of suffers from a bad group of players too. There's definitely a difference in the player that we see with these guys and with San Jose, and I get that senior level, but still, it does raise questions. But I mean, I will say the biggest disappointment, and it's no surprise, was Sergio. He's another example why you can't judge this U20 group. When I keep on saying U20 group, I mean everybody who's eligible for the U20. He's not up there. He shouldn't even been in this tournament. He proved it why he shouldn't, because he wasn't really doing anything. The only things I can even remember from what he did was having a couple of tactical fouls, and that was about it.
There's not much I saw from him that justifies him being here at all.
No, and it's same can sadly be said by Chris Medina. I mean, compared to what he did at the U17 championship last year and what he did now was very underwhelming. I mean, the same could say about Carroll, but we'll get to that later. But Cruz, I mean, as you've been monitoring him this season with now called the Town, which is San Jose's second team, he is a little underwhelming, and I don't think it'll be a huge loss if he chooses Mexico, which I feel like that's where he's leaning towards.
Yeah, that he was another one. I don't think he was quite as underwhelming as Oracle, but he was not that great. I mean, I don't think he was like terrible, but yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned about losing him either. And I mean, I'd like to keep him, but if we lose him, it's not the end of the world. I think everyone else in that group had a better tournament. Almost everyone else besides Oracle had a better tournament than him. So yeah, he's not as much of a concern to lose as anyone else that we could. So,
and I don't even know how much he has a feature as a 10 either, because I know he's listed as a 10, but he didn't really do anything. He played more like an 8, and I do feel like that's his feature is an 8.
Yeah.
So if you compare him to Taha, who is an 8, I would pick Taha, and he did have a good
absolutely.
tournament.
Yeah, I know Taha didn't have the greatest game when he came on against, I think last night against Mexico it was. But the rest of the games I saw him in, and when I've watched him with Columbus, I've been much more impressed by him than Oracle or Medina. Taha had the really good game against, who was it? It was the second game of the group stage, I believe. He had two assists and a goal, I think it was. If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Against Cuba.
Against Jamaica. Or maybe it was Cuba.
It was Cuba. It was Cuba, I'm pretty sure.
Between those two games. Okay.
Yeah, those two games kind of blend together.
It's kind of hard. And those two are blurring. Yeah.
Yeah, it was against Cuba. He had the goal in the 58th minute, and then he had a really nice assist for, I think it was Zambrano's goal in that game, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was. Now that I look at it, yeah, that was him making that forward pass to Zambrano.
Yeah. I thought that was a good game from him. That was probably his standout one.
he still has a lot to develop on, but he's definitely one to
Yeah,
continue
and
monitoring after
he's
how
only
he performed in this
18.
tournament.
Yeah, he's only
Yeah.
18, I think. So
So
he's got a little bit of time, and I'm
yeah,
sure
and
I'm guessing he'll get more minutes with Columbus, hopefully, with the first team.
yeah,
But I mean, that is a
and he's been doing well with the second team too.
yeah. And Columbus is, compared to like San Jose, a little harder team to break into right now, just because I mean that
Mm-hmm.
midfield's pretty good, and their attacking players are obviously rather stacked. Although they did loan someone out recently, so there may be a little more chances there. But
Mm-hmm. And
either
you can
way, if
only
he
imagine what
continues
he
the
could
way
do when he turns 20.
yeah, it's like either way, if he continues on playing the way he is, developing the way he is, he'll be a pretty good player.
Mm-hmm. And that pretty much leaves with Pedro Soma, who played very well on
Yep.
both ends too, especially defensively, that's his job as a six. He made a lot of good forward runs too. I mean, he did get 2 goals against Jamaica, which isn't saying much, but still,
I was gonna say it's kind of
from a
hard to
six, that's still
judge a
good.
lot from that Jamaica game just because
Yeah,
that Jamaica team's not very good, but still he had he
yeah,
had 2 against them, and they're pretty good goals from what I remember. But yeah, he
yeah.
was another one that I
He was
was
good
impressed
against
with.
Mexico. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And it's only a matter of time when he makes his move out of his Spanish club. That would definitely be telling him where he goes next. But yeah, he's still right where he hasn't changed in my opinion. He's still way up there amongst our six.
yep.
And then that leaves with the fours. Yeah, the first one is looking at it that pops up and the one I've been watching the most probably is Nympha. Yeah, he had an
Yeah,
absolute banner against Mexico. He did have some good assists and goals, but he was still underwhelming. I mean, it's the same thing you can say for Sobrano. Sobrano got assists. He got a couple goals, but he was very underwhelming. You cannot let those goals and assists be the end all for you. Like, he's still, in my opinion, and this is the reason why I don't think he should have been called up. He is not ready because when you watch him with Crown Legacy, second team for North Carolina, he's not ready for that level. He will be, I imagine. I mean, based on what he was doing, but it's just not yet because he's still incredibly young.
yeah. That was along with that with the point about Zambrano. I think he was average, and I don't feel like Carol Figueroa got kind of little. I mean, I don't think he was fantastic when he did play, but I think he got a little screwed in this tournament that he didn't get a ton of minutes. I mean, I'm pretty sure he didn't play at all
Mm-hmm.
against Jamaica, which that sucks
He
for
did play a
him.
little
And
bit against Jamaica. It was late.
okay,
Yeah,
I couldn't remember. I was trying to pull up the subs from
yeah.
that
He
game,
was a late sub.
but yeah, he
He
just
only
didn't get
started
it.
it against Cuba.
Cuba, and he didn't
I think it was
score. I'm pretty
Cuba he
sure.
started against.
Yeah,
Yeah, and he after that he was just a late sub. I mean, people are criticizing him for not scoring, but he is one of the younger guys on this team. He is playing 2 ages up.
yeah,
And when you
like
look what he did last year at the U17, he was second in goals. He was off by 1 goal, I believe it was.
yeah,
Uh, but again, he's playing 2 ages up. You gotta give him the benefit of the doubt because of that. You
yeah,
also gotta give him the benefit of the doubt. He started only 1 game.
yeah, yeah. So I just like I don't judge him a ton from what he did play, and I feel like he. I mean, I get to an extent why he didn't play as much, just less experienced. But I also feel like he
Mm-hmm.
probably should have played a little more. But I don't know, I'm not going to write him off because of a one U20 tournament when he's playing like 2 ages up. That's not smart. It's not. David Vasquez, I thought looked fairly decent from watching.
Yeah.
I don't remember. He had 2 against Jamaica, I think, if I remember correctly, and then
let me see.
Yeah, I think it was 2
Yeah,
against
he had 2 very early on at the second, third minute.
Yeah.
I think that was it, if I remember correctly. I'm trying to go through it real quick, but he did get some assists.
Yeah, I thought he had another goal.
It was against Panama.
Yeah. I was like, I thought he had another.
I mean, he was talented. I would say he showed a lot of sparks.
He had the first goal.
He did try to do a little bit too much, but I mean, at the second and third minute mark, he still has a lot to work on because he was trying to do a little bit too much, like I said.
Yeah.
But that's what you gotta expect for someone who's that talented playing at this age. They're going to try to do a little bit too much, but outside of that, he was good.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fault him for trying to do a little too much at this age. I mean, I'd rather see him trying to do things and them not necessarily working than being a more like timid player at this age. So I don't dock him too much for that. That experience to know what you can and can't do is going to come eventually.
Yeah. And Ruben Ramos is basically the same story as David Vasquez. I think he was a little bit more safe on the ball, which is good. He didn't take a whole lot of risk, which you can also say is a negative, but he did get some goals. I think it was like a couple goals. He got a couple assists, I believe, if I remember right.
He had
he was
one
making a lot of smart
really,
passes.
He had one really good goal.
Yeah, it was probably one of the best goals. Yeah.
I think it was in I think it was our quarterfinal game that he scored in, I think. Let's see.
He scored against Guatemala.
Yeah,
that's the game where he got that absolute beautiful goal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that goal was very good.
Yeah.
Probably the second.
He's definitely one to continue monitoring.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's between him or Brooklyn, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Brooklyn goal was crazy
in the Panama game.
Gozo, he's in the same boat as Nympha. He is one of the two youngest players that was in this tournament. I would pick Nympha over Gozo. Gozo is showing sparks, but he was so wasteful on the ball. That was the biggest takeaway I took from him. He was incredibly underwhelming, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I think the forward group in general, though, was probably forward or midfield group. I think were both the more impressive groups, honestly. I don't know. I think I might lean more towards the midfield just because I feel like there was a few more solid players, and I think Nico was the best player in the tournament for us. So I think I'll give slight edge to the midfield through this tournament, but I think the forward group overall did well, even if a few of them were somewhat underwhelming. But I mean, again, it's a young age group that can some of that can be expected.
Yeah. And going back to Nico, yeah, his ball skills were so good. There's so many times that he had control of that ball when he was being challenged, not just by one, but by two opponents. And not a lot of our players managed to do that. There was a lot that were losing the ball, and he was making a lot of smart passes and risky passes that had an end result. Um, and not a lot of attackers can say that when that should have been like their expertise. And one of them is Marcus Sobrano, which I think part of the reason why he was playing ahead of Gabriel is because he has age on his side. Um, maybe it's also because he has experience through Benfica U23. But from my understanding, I think it was Marcus C that said it, or maybe it was someone else who said that Marcus is higher rated than Cairo by the Federation. I'm confident it was Marcus C who said that based on the article he wrote. But if that's the case, this is another example by the Federation that they need to reevaluate how they determine players. It's no different than Damian Downs. People say that in that closed door game with Jamaica, Downs wasn't that impressive, but he sure does impress Cone. So if he can impress Cone, he should be able to impress the U.S. I mean, you can say that's on him. You can say that's on the Federation. But Marcus is another example because, I mean, it should have been known that Sobrano isn't who we thought he would be after he crashed out at Benfica U23, and he's not even playing for the senior team, or at least as of last season, for his new club, Victoria in Portugal. I think he's with their second team. I don't know where he's at with them right now. Obviously, because of the U20, we'll probably find out soon if they are going to put him with the first team. But if he doesn't make it for the first team for Victoria, then we just need to let him go. Look for someone else. I mean, at least Cairo is going to get an opportunity with Liverpool too. And people can say, well, he's not that good, whatever. He's overhyped because he's with Liverpool. But I think I trust Liverpool better than our federation and most fans.
I'm kind of in the same thing with Zambrano. I mean, if he's not going to get chances in Portugal, it's probably time to move on, or at least bump some players above him in the order of the roster rating. I mean, I don't want to entirely move on from younger players, but I mean, at some point you have to show something with club level to continue warranting you playing for the national team.
Yeah, and one of those players is Julian Placius, who just made that move to Westerlo. So he's one to monitor. I don't think he's going to play for their first team this season, mainly because his age and he's just showed up. He'd probably be sent on loan to another Portuguese Belgian team, but we'll have to see. But if he ends up doing better than Sobrano by next year's U20 World Cup, bring him along or whoever else. Not just because someone used to have the hype or used to be highly rated, we have to bring him. At some point, it's something we already discussed in the previous episode. It's time to move on for certain players. But again, as I said, I trust these European clubs' opinion on players far better than I do other Americans. It's no different than the whole Johnny Cardoso stuff. How there's a lot of people say, "Oh, he's bad because he does bad for the U.S." Okay, then explain why is he immediately got a start for Real Betis. Started, I think it was every single game after he made his first start for Betis. He's being looked at by Fulham. Many U fans are hyped up about him winning their club to go for him.
Yeah, I think Milan was
Barcelona inquiry about
AC
him.
Milan. Yeah, AC Milan was too.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. I think he 100% deserves more chances with the national team, and I hope whoever we get as a coach gives him those chances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I trust Pecorini far more on the assessment of Johnny than I do Gregg Berhalter.
Yeah.
Especially the whole story that we heard in a chat. I mean, if that's even one bit true, then that's just appalling. You can't do that to a player, no matter what.
Yeah.
But let me just show everybody not the roster, the game results and all that just really quickly. So our first game was against Jamaica, as we mentioned. It was a 9-0 game. Apparently, Jamaica didn't bring their best players intentionally because they wanted to showcase other players, and that was mostly their domestic players. They're probably trying to get those players sold overseas. So moving on from there, we have the Cuba game. Yeah, it looks low scoring for when we're talking about Cuba. Now, Cuba did make it to the semifinals, but one quick thing on Cuba is that they played super aggressive, probably the most aggressive out of this whole entire tournament, where there should have been a lot more yellow cards handed to them than there were that had an impact on how many goals we scored.
Yeah.
You,
That. And then final game was
is there something
final
you
group
really
stage
want to add?
is we played Costa Rica, beat them 1-0.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember who scored on that because that screen is tiny for me. Who scored?
Yeah.
I think we could have scored a few more in that game. I don't think Costa Rica is a bad team, but I still think we probably could have scored a few more. At least.
Yeah, and just from watching that game, we
2-0.
should have scored more, but
I do. I mean,
yeah.
it
The
wasn't
thing
like they
is
were
with Costa
terrible.
Rica, they were playing heavily defensive.
Yeah, I mean, we only had, I think, 9 shots. Looking at the stats, two on target, but we had 61% possession in that game. So I mean, I'm not mad at that result.
So the
I didn't by any means, but
I mean, I'm not when you watch it.
But I'm not mad at the result, but I would have liked to have seen at least like a 2-0. But it's still, I mean, you win. Winning is obviously what ends up mattering when you're trying to qualify for the U20 World Cup, which was the primary goal of the tournament. Honest.
Yeah, just a important information to provide on the Costa Rica game is that for Costa Rica to advance to the knockout stage, 2 things had to happen for them. They either had to get tied or not concede more than 5 goals. So that's why they were playing heavily defensive. They were more than happy to lose 1-0. But as long as they didn't lose by 5 goals, they're happy with the result. They were just trying to prevent us from scoring as much as possible so they can advance. They were looking at the game from a different perspective. They honestly weren't trying to win that game, not in my opinion. Because the only time they ever tried to attempt to score was on a counterattack, and after that, they just went right back to defense.
Yeah, they had 1 shot all game, so it was very clearly a more defensive effort for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's why I'm not too upset by it. I would like to see a second goal, but knowing what they were doing, it wasn't a huge deal to me. I wasn't going to lose sleep over it. It was different for Guatemala, though, because that game should not have been 1-0. We were lucky that it wasn't a tie game.
Yeah, they had a lot of shots. I thought I forget who started in goal that game. Yeah, Pudri that game. I thought, if I remember correctly, looked pretty good. They had,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty even as far as shots were, but we had way significantly more possession, and I think that game we should have had more than just the one goal, and even that one goal was a really good, was just a really good shot or like individual effort. It wasn't necessarily what you'd expect in a game that you should be winning by more than just one goal.
Yeah, I mean, it is as it is what it is. Guatemala wasn't a bad team at all. I mean, I'll show you really quick on Guatemala. Yes, they barely made it through. Um, but when you look at who they played against, it wasn't bad. Where is it? There it is. They put a beat on it, Haiti. Obviously, they needed to, but they almost tied it against Mexico. That's still impressive alone when you think about it. Panama, yes, they lost 3-0, but Panama also beat Canada. They knocked them out to qualify for the World Cup.
Yeah,
Uh, but uh, they were not they weren't a bad team at all. I would say they were the toughest team at that point when we in that tournament, and then obviously the next toughest was Panama, which I said they had beaten Guatemala three. No, I'm gonna get myself mixed up right now. Because let me go back to the it was Panama. As you can see, they tied against Mexico 1-1, and they beat Guatemala 3-0, and that's part of the argument why I would say that going into the game against Mexico, the game was in our favor just by looking at who Mexico played
result.
because we played against two teams in their group. It should have been ours.
The Panama, and then obviously we played Panama in semifinals and won that 2-1. That took a incredible shot from Reigns in the 86th minute to get that win. I mean, that shot, that's probably not going in 9 times out of 10. I mean, that was a
Mm-hmm.
difficult shot. Very impressive goal. And then you had Vasquez score the opener in that game in the 40th minute.
Mm.
Um, that penalty was that Panama got was, at least to me, that was kind of a weak call. But
Yeah, it definitely was.
I mean, that game
Especially
was,
when someone had his hand like right here. So
yeah. I mean, I understand to an extent why it's called, but I think that was a very weak call. But I mean, overall, the game was pretty
mm-hmm.
even. Um, both teams 9 shots. We beat them on shots on target, uh, but they had more possession than us throughout the game. So fairly even game. I mean, I would have liked to have kept a clean sheet in that game, but I mean, when you get a penalty called, it's kind of hard,
Mm-hmm.
and definitely a good result, I'd say. Um, but yeah, that penalty just still frustrates me a little.
Yeah, I will say this. I think that game was more worthy of a final than between us and Mexico.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
I just think our guys were getting tired by that point. You can see it with Mexico as well, but they just did not have whatsoever the skills. They just got a lucky break at the very end.
yeah,
Uh, but between us and Panama, it was a much better fight.
yeah. That was a much more to me exciting game. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
probably in part because we actually won that game, but that I think it was a generally good game, capped off by a very good goal.
Yeah, and that game against Mexico was honestly boring, and again, I think it was a lot because of our guys were just tired and they just didn't have the
Yeah,
skills. But they should have closed this game out. They needed a second goal. They needed to control the game. They weren't controlling the game. You could say there was a lot of fault on the players, and there was for the loss. But when you gave 5 added minutes and you're just shy of 7 added minutes,
yep,
that's when you guys start questioning things. I mean, this is not the first time it's happened. The same thing happened for Mexico against Honduras in the Nations League. You do need to raise those questions on why that happened.
yeah, that was. I mean, the whistle should have been blown before that goal went in, but at the same time, the U.S. should also have managed their time better.
Mm-hmm.
And when you carrying the lead into the 96th minute, you've got to be better with managing that time, trying to keep the ball, not giving up corners or just giving them any type of chances at all. It is a U20 group, so it's a little more understandable that they're not quite as experienced with that, but
Mm-hmm.
it's something you have to be able to do. You have to be able to close out games better than that.
Yeah. It is very disappointing because of what happened. Losing, we almost had the 4-peat for the U20 championship. But it is incredibly frustrating that happened to
Yeah,
us. It is one of those things. It's going to be added to the controversial list of CONCACAF, in my honest
yeah,
opinion. Uh, no matter how you look at it, you can either celebrate it or you can say it's only on the players, not on the refs. You have to include it on that list.
yeah. It's
Uh,
a little. That game's a little of both. The players should have done a better job closing out, but at the same time, that
mm,
opportunity for that goal shouldn't have even happened.
yeah. Well, moving on to the Olympics. This is going to be a little bit quicker, just simply because roster shorter and it finished faster.
Yeah,
uh, first thing, just by looking at the roster, is Patrick Shelton and Gaga. Very
yeah,
surprised that Gaga didn't start whatsoever.
yeah. I went into the tournament expecting that both of them would probably end up getting minutes,
Mm-hmm.
just because I think they are similar levels. Age wise, Schulte's older, but first team experience, Gaga has a little more because obviously Schulte's was at Columbus where they didn't have a need for a keeper when he was initially there. But yeah, I went in expecting both of them to get. Um, yeah, I went in.
Looks like we lost Robert. We'll just wait till he gets back in. But I'll just say, okay, quick thing on that. Couldn't imagine what Gaga's feeling, and it really does make you wonder why Gaga didn't start. Now, saw some people comment on a couple of my posts on Twitter saying that he wasn't prepared or whatever, but or obviously Schulte's doing better than Gaga in training, whatever, but okay. It looks like you're back. Are you good?
Yep. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
It dropped for a second.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm trying to remember where I was at. But yeah, I expected both of them to get minutes there. I mean, I don't get why both of them didn't get minutes. I mean, I guess Schulte is mid-season, so I guess that argument could be made that like he's in more playing form than Gaga is. But I mean, I don't know. I expected to see both of them play, and I kind of wanted to see both of them play because I really like both of them. I think they're both good goalies. And unfortunately, I don't think Schulte played, at least shot stopping wise, to the best of what I've seen him do. Specifically in that France game, I think he could have done better on that first goal. The second one, I think it is in that France game. I think it was the second one. Was, I don't know, on initial watch, it looked like he could have done better, but then there was another angle of it where I'm like, that's a lot harder than it looked initially. But yeah, I don't think it was his strongest tournament. Those couple of those goals, specifically that first one against France, is stuff that I've seen him save before with Columbus, and I've seen him play better with the national team in warm-up matches too. But yeah, I would have really liked to have seen Gaga get a few minutes, even if it is just one of the group stage games, be it Guinea or New Zealand. I think, especially if you're going to keep him away from Chelsea's preseason or preseason with Strasbourg or wherever he's going to end up playing, and then just have him not play at all is unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, you had to admit that Schulte didn't have the best tournament. It definitely put a lot of doubts on a lot of fans. It kind of did for me as well, where I thought that he could probably easily compete against Turner for the number one spot. I don't know so much, but I still believe he needs to be brought in at the next camp.
Yeah.
Only simply because our goalie situation isn't that great. You have to have Gaga there as well. I think we need to
And I
have
think,
Horvath, Turner, Schulte, and Gaga compete.
yeah, those four I think are the best options right now. I know people are throwing Diego Kochen around with that group, but I don't know. I'm very apprehensive of that just because he hasn't played first team minutes like at all. And I mean, I know that's with Barcelona, so that's kind of hard to do, but I don't know. I think the guys I want to see the most in camp right now, just based on the fact that they have first team experience and are playing games fairly consistently, bar Turner, is Schulte, Gaga, and Horvath. And then obviously, because Turner has the starting job, or has had, whatever, the starting job, you bring him in to be part of that competition too. I think, I mean, I personally like Schulte, Gaga, and Horvath probably more than I do Turner at this point. I think Schulte has better on ball or distribution ability than Turner does. I think Gaga probably does too. I haven't watched as much of him recently just because he's been on loan and it's harder to follow where he was on loan. And then Horvath, I think, is slightly better in distribution, and I think Horvath is as good, if not better, shot stopping too.
Mm. I do think we need to have Diego come at some senior camp just to try and help secure him.
Yeah,
But it has to be like in a friendly window, like the one that's coming up in September,
yeah,
and we have to take advantage of it being a FIFA window, because then Spain can't tell Barcelona block it, block
yeah,
the
yeah.
call up.
I wouldn't mind seeing him called up, especially just to get those like contacts with him and try to secure him from being lost to Spain.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily think he should be in consideration for the starting role, at least not as much as some of the more experienced guys in this group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So moving on to defenders, I on how many? Oh
Mm-hmm.
my god! What can you honestly?
There's not.
Uh, I would have thought Wiley would play a little bit more, but I would say that he is not ready. And I
Yeah,
honestly am glad that he didn't get a lot of minutes, because it probably would expose him. Because he's not, and I keep on saying this, he's not a left back. He's a wing back. People need to
yeah,
understand that. Eventually they will, because he's going over to Europe. And Chelsea's going to make him into a wing back. I guarantee it.
yeah.
But he should not have been in this roster. I think it's all based on hype. That why he got called up. And
I
it
mean, I think it's
sucked
also just kind
because
of.
we
I think him getting called off was also just kind of a somewhat a lack of a ton of options. Just players not wanting to go or getting turned down.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I know some people were putting Wiley ahead of Jogo simply because, oh, we get to see more Wiley because he plays in MLS. Jogo plays in Liga 2. Well, now he's trying to fight for a new contract with Real Sociedad. He's been starting quite a bit in their preseason, so we'll have to see. But I would definitely would put Jogo ahead of
Yeah, me
Wiley.
too.
Um, but having Wiley there doomed us having Token, and I know you probably saw some of the comments that say all in the past to some people that Token is not ready for the national team and probably will never be because of what he did the Nations League. And if you watch him in any of these friendly camps for the U23, he wasn't that good. He wasn't that ready, and he proved it again at this Olympics. He's not that good in his passes. Oh my! I
Oh yeah, his pat,
There was at one point where it
especially.
was like
I think there was Morocco specifically against Morocco. I remember. I'm pretty sure he completed more passes to Moroccan players than he did to American players. It was not. It was banging my head on a wall, frustrating with him.
Yeah, for a fullback, you should not constantly turn that ball over. He didn't complete any long balls. He didn't complete any crosses, and he had, I think, at one point a 67% pass rate.
Yeah, I
That
think
is
at one point
god
I saw
awful.
he had an yeah, I think at one point I saw he was like under 50% passing. It was like 8 out of 19 passes completed or something like that. I was it's almost impressive to be that bad at passing.
Yeah, especially how he's very good at passing crosses, and uh, in MLS, that's how he gets a lot of his assists. But
Yeah.
this is another example why you can't base on the skills of a player simply because of what they do in MLS. It's no different than it won the chess, a show where Tony made another full 90 start for Bayern 2, and a couple of the MLS homers laughed about it, saying, well, he's a 19-year-old playing for Bayern 2.
Like
Not respected leagues are
it's
not going to start an 18-year-old or 19 year
yeah,
old.
like unless
Just
unless
because he didn't.
unless you're getting somebody who is going to be world class or like elite level guy, you're not at Bayern, Chelsea, any type of club like at that level. Okay, maybe Chelsea
Mm-hmm.
because they're buying a ton of 18-year-olds, but I I digress. Or like a club like Dortmund that does play youth a lot. You're not going to
Yeah.
see a guy at like Bayern or Real Madrid, Barca, any Inter Milan, any of those type of teams that are consistent winners, consistently getting trophies, consistently winning their leagues, are not going to have a 19-year-old starting or even likely getting minutes, especially at center back or any of those defensive positions, unless that guy is going to be at the very least a like top level elite player, but most likely you're not going to see it unless that guy's going to be like world-class level. It's just kind of a detachment from reality to think that someone being 19 playing in Bayern's second team is someone who has no realistic future with the national team, especially with our national team.
Yeah, you show me a top team who will start Token. He's not going to start for Bayern. He's not going to start for Barcelona. He's not even going to start for I would even say Stuttgart. He's not going to do
You're going to struggle. You probably, I don't want to be harsh, but you'd probably struggle to find a championship team, bar maybe like a relegation threatened championship team that he would start for. Like legitimately, I don't think that he's
possibly
starting for anything.
It really comes down to the league.
Yeah, like I don't think he's strong enough defensively. I think there is a level of offensive capability there. I think Morocco was a very poor showing of that. But yeah, I don't think he's going to, just on defensive capability, be able to start in even most championship teams.
No, I mean, I hope this pretty much puts an end on him. On people saying he needs to come into a senior camp again and compete against Lutz or whatever. I mean, before this tournament, I would say he needs to compete against Lutz. Maybe he still need to compete against Lutz for that number 2 spot. I mean, there's a few, Wiley and Jogo or the others that need to compete against Lutz for that number 2 spot on the left. But even after this, between him and our center backs, I'm most frustrated about. I know a lot of people are frustrated by Mihailovic. I was too, but this defense cost us badly. And people had issues with Harold that last game against Morocco. Yes, he was awful against Morocco, but that group stage game, he was doing better than Token. And people were saying that Token had a better chance of having a senior men's national team career than Harold.
I mean that Morocco game. It's like, I remember people hyping him up because of those.
Exactly. And these, I don't know why he didn't play center back more often. And the thing is, he needed to play on that left center back spot.
I mean, he didn't play center back that often because because he refused to switch from Robinson and Zimmerman, even though neither of them had a remotely good tournament. I think Robinson played slightly better than Zimmerman, but that's not saying a whole ton because they both were very, very poor this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little bit of swap. I would say Zimmerman was slightly better than Robinson.
I mean, I think a lot of that's trash versus garbage Walker at this point.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of like Walker had show a little bit more leadership than Miles did. When that was purely why they were brought into this camp, as we've been told, because they have the experience and the leadership. But Miles showed no leadership, no ability to help Schulte prevent goals. I mean, I go back to that game against France. It was the very first goal. People wanted to blame Schulte for it. When you look at it, it was a difficult goal to save.
Yeah,
but Miles did nothing to prepare himself to stop that ball.
Yeah, that's my thing with that first goal is everyone was kind of harping on Schulte for it. Yes, I do think Schulte probably could have done a little better, got a finger on it, maybe. I don't think that's necessarily when you say that a goalie like has to save or it's a failure. I think Gaga would have struggled on that too. I think it's a savable one, but not one that you are like that's a complete error. But the build up to that goal was horrible. defensively.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one's stepping out to challenge it. No one's doing anything to just stop that from happening. I mean, the same thing with that second goal too, against France. The defense on that was horrid. I think it's the second goal. I don't remember who it was, but someone just got completely spun around on that, and just
I
the
want to say it was
defense on.
Token. I just want to say it's
I,
Token.
I think it was Tolkien. It was Tolkien. Is Tolkien or one of the midfielders? I think. But then none of the center backs were like anywhere near really challenging that, at least not effectively. And one of the corner goals, I think it was against France, they were falling over each other. And I don't know how you expect to do anything in a tournament when you're have center backs playing the way that they were, or just this entire defense playing the way they were.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have liked to see more of both Harriel and Dietz, but even then, this defense was just not good.
And you got City fans still saying Miles is still one of the better defenders that we have, blah blah blah. But God, this is an example. I mean, they got owned by U23 players.
Miles is. I don't necessarily think he had the better tournament. Miles is still the one I have slightly more confidence in than Zimmerman, just because I do think when he has played with the national team, he's looked slightly better overall.
Mm-hmm.
But even still,
I will agree with that part, but it's not much.
Yeah, it's not saying a ton, and that's not me saying that Robinson should be in the national team conversation unless there's injuries that force that to happen. But I mean, Zimmerman has just shown to me to make a lot more boneheaded plays than Robinson does. I mean, you want to go back to the 22 World Cup, that penalty against Wales was just silly, to say the least. And then he had quite a few more silly moments in this tournament, just making general boneheaded plays. I don't think Robinson necessarily makes those boneheaded plays as much. I think he's more consistent, but just still not at that high enough level. But I don't think he's as mistake prone as Zimmerman. But again, neither of them in like ideal situation would I want to see with the first team, or necessarily want to see them with this Olympic team. But I mean, I can understand a little bit why they are, just because I don't think we have a ton of great options at U23 center back right now. But that's frustrating.
The reason why we're harping on these two the most is because of the fact that they're senior players. We expect it more from them. Well, should, but not these two.
Even,
but they're.
I legitimately expect more from them, even if they're players that I don't necessarily rate very highly with the senior team. They're still senior team players, so I expect to not see U20 level mistakes from them.
Yeah. And I know some people are trying to defend them by saying, well, who else were you brought in? All the European guys couldn't get released. Ream is probably going to be a bench player this year for Fulham, but it looks like now he's going to go to Charlotte. Either way, I don't think there's much of an issue why you couldn't bring him in. Trusty is staying at Sheffield United.
You could have got Ream, I think. I think you legitimately had a good chance to get Ream in there. I mean, realistically,
and Brooks too.
Especially if he's going to end up
but Brooks could have gone.
Yeah. I think Brooks would have liked to have gone too, just like to get a chance to show something again on an international level.
Yeah, and he's a
But
free agent. I get it. He's trying to look for a new club, but his agent could go look for a new club for him while
yeah,
he's at the Olympics. And the thing is,
him
we
being at
didn't
the
have to
Olympics and having
ask
a
for anybody.
him being at the Olympics and having a good show would probably help him get signed by someone. But
Exactly.
nope, we're gonna go
And
with the same guys we've
same with
seen 100 times.
McKenzie.
Yeah,
Yeah, McKenzie is at Gink. He's been there for a while now. There probably won't be any issues to get him released. He's and it looks like he's trying to get out of there. You got a couple of
yeah,
teams in England that are looking at him. You got
yeah. I think I
the
saw a
whole
couple from
Bundesliga
Germany.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, so this tournament would have helped him. If you want to try to say, "Oh, well, making a move will hurt their chances," they wouldn't get released because they're trying to make a move. Well, explain why. You have Tanner Tessman that
Testament.
got
Yeah,
released. You have Paxton who got released. Uh, Yao is being looked at by Anderlecht right now. Wiley was a miss of signing with Chelsea and
yeah,
is looking for a loan. And the same thing is for Gaga. He's looking for a loan. So there shouldn't have been any issues to get McKenzie there. There wouldn't have been any issues to get Trusty there. There wouldn't have been any issue getting Ream there. That I hate that whole argument. We wouldn't be able to get these players released. Then why did 8 of our players that got released for the Olympics came out of Europe?
yeah. And
It,
I mean, I know I've seen some players have like turned it down, which you can't rule out that some of them would turn it
yeah,
down. But I
which I
don't
find
think
kind of
it's
funny. I don't know why you won't want to go to Olympics.
yeah. I mean, I get to an extent for like some of the Copa guys who played a decent amount, not wanting to go and wanting to go with their clubs, or like guys who are fighting for spots at their club, not wanting to go, but like there's realistically, if you have 4 or 5 center back options that you're looking at, you can get probably 1 or 2 of those guys to want to go and have their club release them. Like,
Yeah. I mean, we can go on all day. I know some people say that, it'd be, you honestly thought that Milan would release Pulisic. He's established with his club. I
yeah,
think they probably would have been okay with him going, but
he's an
whatever.
established enough
That's
player,
you just
and
try to make an argument. Yeah,
although I get a little more
these are
with
just
him
people trying.
just because it's a new coach, wanting, if you want to stay with like a new coach and get your preseason in, I get that. But I mean, realistically, I think you could have got him away. I mean, he's a fairly
Yeah,
established
I
player,
think
fairly
this.
liked player. I think he can be convinced to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could have convinced like Balogun to have been able to go, but
I mean, I would understand why he wouldn't go because he has to figure out something with Monaco. But
yeah,
probably understand Pepe, but Johnny, Johnny probably could have gone. I don't think there
yeah.
would have been an issue.
I
Tillman needed to
realistically think
go,
a
in my
lot.
opinion. He needed to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as mad with like the midfield guys that who weren't able to go or chose not to go, just because I do think the midfield group's
Yeah.
a little better than this defensive group or our available strikers.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and they made it seem like this defense was supposed to be the rock of this team, but that apparently didn't turn out right, obviously. But I mean, we got to talk about the midfield real quick. Is that Kramashi? I would have thought that they probably would play him a little bit more simply
yeah,
because of all the hype. But this is an
he didn't
example
play
why
hardly
he
at
needed
all.
to be with the U20 team, not with the U23. Yeah,
Yeah,
and he wasn't ready. You could see that he wasn't ready, but he needed to be with that U20. I'll keep on saying that, and
yeah,
people
I
are
would
starting to
love to
realize
see him
that
with the
too.
U20 team.
But this is a failure on the federation because he would have been a starter for the U20. I guarantee it. He would have been one of the
Yeah,
leading players for the team. They screw him over having that opportunity to go sit on the bench at the Olympics and barely playing.
and
I
play
don't
like
even think he
20
even
minutes
come.
the whole freaking tournament.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. yeah, it's ridiculous, but whatever. And then Buzio, I mean, I got what I expected from Buzio, to be honest. Uh, Nothing
Yeah,
there.
he was
Tanner,
decent.
yeah, he was decent until he got hurt. But
Yeah, which
uh,
was incredibly
Tanner,
unfortunate to
I
lose him.
expected a lot more from him.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
he
I
was.
honestly didn't know it was that bad at first.
Yeah, Tessman had a very up and down tournament to me. I mean, there were some moments I thought he
Yeah.
looked pretty good, and then there was like the Morocco game where he was a traffic cone. Like he did
Mm-hmm.
not have a good game at all. I
Yeah.
mean, again, that Morocco game, it's like nobody really had a good game there.
Yeah. But he still needs to be looked at as a possible senior option because of the whole Tyler Adams saga. You
Yeah,
have to bring him in. Even if he may not be ready, maybe never ready, but you need to. Uh,
yeah,
McGlynn, I think I get that a lot of people had issues with McGlynn. I get what I expected from him. I do think he
yeah.
has a
I didn't.
future with the senior team still, but I don't understand why people are getting so bent out of shape about McGlynn. I don't
Yeah,
know whatever, but
I've seen a decent amount of criticism of him, and honestly, I don't get it. I thought he looked fine from
mm-hmm.
what he played. Um, I mean, I don't think he played great against Morocco, but I think he was the better of the three starters against Morocco. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
just,
would have taken him over Buzio. I know some people are saying that they don't agree with that, but I think he offered a
yeah,
little
I mean,
bit
I think
more
McGlynn and Buzio both
on the
had decent
offense.
tournaments. Um,
Yeah.
I don't get, I don't really get any heavy criticism of him. I think he had a decent tournament. I hope to see him get a move
Mm-hmm.
to Europe soon. Um,
Yeah, he needs to be in the Netherlands, which based
yeah,
on some of the rumor mills that might happen. But hopefully it does because he definitely needs it. And maybe I would think he will have a better Dutch career than Mihalovic.
yeah,
Uh,
which,
do not let that free kick and that PK cloud how his
yeah,
performance went because he was
he
so
was,
bad.
yeah, Mihailovic was horrendous. Um, I mean, just about every time he touched that ball, it was a giveaway or a mistake of some kind. It seemed. I mean, again, like with Tolkien, I swear I saw him pass it to Moroccan players or just opposition players more than I saw him pass it to American players. He was just a very, very, very frustrating watch. And I mean, I think that was, aside from a few people out there, I think that was a pretty universal consensus that he did not have a good tournament.
Yeah.
Aside from a few delusional Chicago Fire fans who, for some reason, still love him. Um, one in particular.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
like
He
even
was awfully
some
quiet
just,
after that Morocco game, though.
yeah, even some just like general MLS fans, even some Chicago fans that I've in group chats with or I've seen on Twitter, other social media stuff like that, just generally seem to uh, admit that he did not have a good tournament. I mean, I don't want to pile on him
You could
because he's
not
kind of
say
got
they.
he's
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I don't want to pile on a ton on him because he's already got uh, plenty of crap because of this tournament on just social media and in
Mm-hmm.
general. But I mean, it was just not a good tournament. And that's probably going to be
But you can't say
some.
that Luna.
Oh yeah, no, Luna would have been a better option. I mean, if you even wanted to bring in another like six type player to back up Tessman, I mean, think like
Mm-hmm.
Aiden Morris, someone like that would have been a better option. I mean, I can go on all day about guys I'd have rather seen than him, to be honest. I mean, he's just literally almost any other overage midfielder would have been a better option. An overage striker instead, and just have another age eligible midfielder would have been better. It's just a very pointless call up that we suffered for having.
Mm-hmm. And we know who to blame for these 3 overage players. Now, I know people are trying to say it's a conspiracy because the mainstream media didn't see it, but you have people with actual sources said it was all Don Garber. Don Garber asked for these 3. Don Garber pushed for these 3. Don Garber pushed for a mostly MLS team. So if they were happen to bring home a medal, look at the incredible things that MLS has done. They got the U.S. their first medal. Dude's looking for more. The dude cares more about MLS profit than the national team. And he's on the board.
Which is,
You should not have someone on the board who cares more about his organization than the U.S. soccer team. Yeah. He's on the board because he's supposed to prioritize U.S. soccer over anything else. But that's not what he's doing, obviously. But we cannot continue having someone like him interfere with the progress of this national team. The national team will not progress more till he's gone. I'll just leave it at that. Because if I get frustrated every time I think about it. And the more I see those stories, I get even more frustrated.
Yeah, that's same general frustrations. I mean, same kind of annoyance with reports I've seen that Berhalter had a role in choosing the lineup, which, I mean, I completely believe that. But
and Marco made it obvious. He said it to CBS. I mean, he told CBS, I'm in contact with Gregg daily. But why is, as we mentioned before, why is Gregg having an impact, an influence, a decision on these youth rosters? He needs to stay. He needed to stay out of this business regarding youth teams.
Yeah,
you should say, I would like to see them, but he.
And with this, at least for me, isn't to like harp on the fact that I don't think Gregg is a good coach. It is more of a frustration for me of this is signs of larger issues within the federation, more so than it is a sign of Gregg being a bad coach, which I think everyone kind of admits at this point, or most would admit at this point. It's more of a frustration of
rational people
failures within the federation to run a proper federation. Like, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily even complain. Like, I don't like that Berhalter was involved, in part just because I don't think he's that great a coach. But I also get frustrated with it because he's involved in the selection of that roster and then is fired shortly after the fact. So it's not like you can justify him being involved in that roster by saying, well, he is the senior team coach and he's going to be for the foreseeable future. So therefore it's okay for him to have some hand in it. Like, if he was going to continue on to be the coach and the federation was sure of that, Marco was sure of that, then okay, I can understand having the national team head coach be somewhat involved in the selection of the roster because he wants to see certain guys. Okay, I can understand that a little. But a coach that is clearly in the hot seat and the federation clearly was discussing firing because he was fired shortly thereafter does not need to be involved in the selection of an Olympic team that he is going to have no reason to care about, no reason to look at, because it's not going to be his job, or it may not be his job in the case of the fact that it was before that. It's just a failure of the federation. Let's look at the forwards.
These youth coaches, that's their job.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're the U18 coach, your job is to watch all eligible U18 players. It's not the senior coach's job to see who he would like to see on that U20 roster, because that's not his responsibility. Just know it's like everybody who's eligible. How's he supposed to balance out all these? You're trying to tell me he's watching every single one of these players from senior all the way down to 17 or whatever it was that he was interfering with? But I mean, if it is Masarasa or anyone else that comes in, that needs to change. But let's finish up the forwards. Taylor Booth, first one I know. When he played, he did well. He was good. I don't understand why he didn't start. I don't understand why he wasn't even given starts playing as a 10. But
yeah, that was incredibly frustrating to me that he got so little minutes when I think he could have been a very useful player. However, when he did play, I think he did good. I think the forward group overall was probably the most solid group, I think. I mean, I generally liked what I saw. Yeah, other than Duncan, I generally liked what I saw from Aronson, from Booth, from Prentice, from Yao. I generally liked what I saw from them. Obviously, it wasn't all perfect, or we would have advanced. Or at least scored in a couple of those games where we lost. But I do think they were overall the highlight of this tournament, especially Yao. I think Yao looked very good.
Yeah, I would say that he was one of our best players in that tournament.
Yeah, easily.
Was it Gagne? He was lighting up. It was disappointing that he didn't get a goal. He was actually trying to do something against Morocco, but he wasn't getting a lot of support, especially from Token. I mean, he had to actually cover for Token a few times. He's a winner trying to cover defensively for Token. That when I saw that, I was like, we're doomed. But I mean, I honestly, I hope that was enough to get him looks from a Bundesliga team, because I like to see him leave Belgium, especially now.
Yeah, and then Paredes looked good. Aronson looked good. Aronson definitely needs to get a little stronger, though. I mean, that's something you can say about
on shooting.
I mean, that's what you can say about both of them. Both Brendan and Paxton need to get a little stronger. But I do think he had a fairly good tournament. Yeah, I do think he could do a little better shooting-wise. Paredes was also very good, I think. He scored against Guinea twice. He had 2 goals against Guinea. He looked very good in that game for sure. I think he looked good.
Assist. I can't remember.
He may have had an assist against New Zealand, I think. I don't remember for sure.
It was I'm trying to look. The only problem with him is that he fell a lot, and he was average on duels. That was the only thing. But going forward, he was pretty good. And for some reason, I'm seeing a lot of people argue, we need to switch him to fullback. But I mean, the thing is, he's not being developed as a fullback by Wolfsburg. He's being developed as a winner by them.
I mean, I can see the argument to put him at fullback during that Morocco game, just because of how poorly both of our fullbacks were doing in that game. But it's not somewhere.
Tactically, yes.
Yeah, it's not somewhere he needs to permanently be playing. I think he's better option as a winger. And obviously
he has the crosses and the shooting.
Obviously his club seems to agree with that. And I don't want to have him playing two different positions for club and country. I think that's counterproductive.
Yeah, and I think we kind of saw that with Tim Weah.
Yeah.
He needs to redevelop as a winner, which it looks like Mata would do that. But when we play him as a winner in the Copa America, that didn't really work out.
Yeah.
His crosses look a little bit weak now.
Yeah. Yeah, he needs to get back, get better. And then Duncan McGuire.
Yeah.
I mean, I got exactly what I expected to get from him, which was not much.
Yeah, and that's one thing that Marco did right was taking him off and playing Paxton as a false nine.
Yeah. Yeah, we looked a lot better once we had Pax playing that false nine instead of McGuire. But yeah, he just it wasn't like he was like as bad as like Mihailovic or something like that, but he just doesn't do anything. He doesn't create enough. He doesn't finish chances enough. And it was just a ghost, basically. It wasn't like he was some mistake prone, at least not to me. Or at least it didn't look like it when not to me watching him. He was just kind of, he was just kind of there. That's just all it was. He was just kind of there. Just
and
not
the thing
very
is,
productive,
I don't see,
but also not very productive, but also not like mistake prone.
I'll say one thing with him though. I am hard pressed that he impressed the Federation more than Damian Downs did. I think at this point you would have been better off bringing him and try and build that bond with him.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see after this.
The only alternate player we saw was Intencio.
Yeah, and that was like a few minutes against Morocco, I think.
But yeah,
he played. He came on for McGlynn against Morocco for a few minutes. Like it was 71st minute. So he got like 20 minutes against Morocco, but by the time he came on,
and I think it was also Guinea.
Yeah, he may have played a few. Yeah, but by the time he came on, we were already down 3-0. The game was pretty much gone at that point, so there's not much to say about that. But
we'll quickly go over.
Yeah, he did have a few
matches.
He had a longer appearance during the Guinea game. Came on at the 52nd minute, but again, by the time
he didn't help, but he didn't make it worse.
Yeah, it was just kind of there. By the time he came on, we were already up 2-0, and Guinea never looked all that threatening. He did his job pretty much. I don't have any complaints about him, really. I also don't think he was, like, superb. But if I can't, I don't really have anything that I want to, like, criticize him on. So, that in itself is kind of a positive with the way this tournament went.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll just quickly show the scores from the Olympics. Obviously, that second half against France didn't go according to plan. It pretty much went all downhill. But what you kind of expect, it is France.
That France team was...
they're more likely going to be the gold medalists for this tournament. The New Zealand game,
or Morocco, honestly.
Yeah, or Morocco. Yeah, it's going to be one of those two. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Morocco is incredibly strong too.
The New Zealand game honestly should have. Yeah, a lot of that is because they got
good.
I think 3-4 players. Yeah, the overage players. Yeah,
They
did the right thing with their overage players.
Yeah,
and if
they
you
hit a
know
home run
this,
with the overage players, and we did not hit a home run with our
and
overage
if you
players.
know this, we're no, none of their players played domestically too. So that should say something.
Yeah,
I mean, I will put MLS ahead of Morocco's domestic league, but still,
yeah. But
their federation obviously doesn't seem to prioritize their domestic league. Then,
yeah, yeah. So I mean, the France game. Uh, I don't want to say it's about what I expected because I thought we could do better against them because of that earlier U23 friendly against them.
mm-hmm.
But also that U23 team was fairly different than the team we put out against them in the Olympics. Just, I mean, the midfield was different. Defense was obviously different. France obviously had some stronger overage players. But yeah, I mean, I didn't necessarily expect to win that game, but I also didn't expect to lose that game 3-0.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not quite as mad about that game as I am the Morocco game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can just tell by the score. Things were positive in the group stage. It was quite positive going in
Yeah, I came out of that group stage
against
actually feeling
Morocco.
pretty good. And then that
Yeah.
Morocco game just killed all of that.
Yeah. As I mentioned in the beginning, there are positives that come out of this because it's our first Olympics since 2008. It's our first group stage since, knockout stage since 2000. But the Morocco game, it was expected, in my opinion, based on looking at this roster. We were going to lose. There was a good chance we were going to
Yeah,
lose,
I
but I
kind of
didn't
feared we were
expect it
going
to
to
be this
lose.
high scoring.
Yeah, I kind of feared we were going to lose, but I also had the expectation that we would at least make it a game. I thought we could at least, I don't know, like 2-1, 1-0, something like that, or at worst like 2-0. Something where at least looks competitive. And I mean, after that first half, even, I thought we're in a decent place still. I mean, I didn't think the first half we
And we were
necessarily
making
played.
some chances, kind of.
I didn't think we necessarily played great that first half, but I'm like, after that first half, I'm like, yeah, we still have a chance. We're in a decent place. And then we even start that second half fairly well. And then it just kind of, the wheels, or even after, I think it was after we started that second half decently well. And then the wheels just completely fall off. And I mean, you get those two goals within like 7 minutes of each other. And just, yeah, it just complete collapse and just complete embarrassment.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be noted as, when it comes to the Olympics, people watch sports they don't typically watch. I do it too. I watch archery, I watch the shooting, I watch the swimming, all that stuff. So it was going to be a given that people are going to watch the soccer, even though they never watch soccer outside the Olympics. There's a lot of confusion. People don't think that this is the team, but this is not the team.
Yeah.
People are thinking that this is the senior team, but this is a U23 team.
Yeah, which, I mean, I also can understand that, thinking that when, if you look at the women's team, it is an A team. It is their senior team. So if and people are more likely to have followed women's soccer in the Olympics since they actually make the Olympics usually and go for gold. I mean, even in that what was it, 2020's Olympics, they had a down year and they still, I think, won bronze in it. So, like, if you
Yeah.
know how the
I
women's
mean,
tournament
for them,
is,
that is a disappointment, though.
yeah, that's obviously that is very much a disappointment. But it's still like decent. But if you follow women's, or at least have watched them in the Olympics, it would be fair to, or at least make sense to assume that a men's team in the Olympics would also be an A team. So, like, I understand why people think that, but also maybe before people make judgments about that team, maybe just check. Like, look at that lineup. Like, there's no, like, anyone who even remotely knows anything about U.S. men's soccer is going to know, like, it should be reasonably expected to look at that lineup and be like, there's no Pulisic, no McKinney, no Adams. None of the, like, names you would associate with the first team are there. But, I mean,
Yeah.
but then people also like to just get their little dunks in on Twitter for their little engagement.
Yeah. But again, it doesn't really help the image of the men's soccer team. I mean, you have some people say this is why the men should be paid. The women should be paid equally, if not more, than the men. And it's like, first off, this is a youth tournament; they don't get paid whatsoever. But is it your? Yeah, sure. Whatever. This is a reason why there were some people that were even saying that the federation needed to prioritize the Olympics over the Copa America. We all were saying the Copa America would change the face of American soccer within America. But who honestly was going to watch the U.S. men's in the Copa America outside of those who watched U.S. soccer already?
I mean, a
You
Copa
needed
America
to
being hosted
attract the
in
fans who don't
a
watch
Copa
soccer,
America
but they
being
watch the
hosted.
Olympics.
Yeah. I mean, you can reasonably expect at least Copa to be more people to start paying attention to Copa if the U.S. makes it out of the group. Like, if the U.S. makes it out of the group, then, like, reasonably there's going to be a decent number of people at least paying somewhat attention to it. But it's still probably, even though it should have as much attention as the Olympics or more, it's probably not going to, just because, like, everyone's following the Olympics. Almost everyone's following the Olympics in some form, so they're at least going to notice the men's team performance.
Yeah, especially when it's been so long since they were even in the tournament.
Yeah,
but
and especially when
they should take it a little bit more serious.
Yeah, and especially when comparatively you have the women's team who's doing well in the Olympics. I mean, that Japan game was rough, but they're still advancing and still doing fairly well, or at least what's expected of them in the Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, the women's are always going to overshadow the men, really, to be honest, when it comes to tournaments. But this goes again, you got to take it a little bit seriously. You can't try to look for the one that says what would provide the best story for American soccer.
And I mean,
you get,
and part of the frustration I see with people who are like, we have a population of 300 some million. We should be able to field a more competitive men's team, especially when compared to, like, the women's team. I'm like, well, realistically, men's soccer is, while it's growing in popularity and significantly more popular than it was a while ago, is still, comparative to women's soccer, at least in the amount of people who are going to play women's soccer versus play men's soccer, is significantly different, because women's soccer is probably, besides maybe like volleyball, or which is the only thing it really competes with in season, or like softball and basketball, is probably one of the more popular ones. I think women's soccer, especially like watching, it's probably more popular, at least up until like Caitlin Clark was probably more popular than like women's basketball. But realistically, soccer is probably a top 2 to 3 popularity sport as far as like women's sports is, both to play and watch, comparative to men's, where it is probably at best 4, most likely around 5, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear both. It's either 4 or 5.
Yeah, it's just,
but
I think it kind of
definitely
balances with
soccer's.
like hockey. I think soccer is probably more available, like ease of availability to play, which is, I mean, it's just it requires a field and like it's much easier to like gain access to that. But like watching it, it's kind of like, it, to me, it kind of goes back and forth. Like, I think if you're just looking at domestic leagues, NHL is definitely more popular, but like overall, watching like Premier League, Bundesliga, top 5 the top 5 Euro leagues, MLS, Liga MX, it's probably close to the level of NHL. Like, so general soccer fandom is probably close to the same level. But either way,
definitely.
it's still like a
much
less popular.
And most shows can't argue it. Moving it to Apple TV didn't. I would say moving MLS to Apple TV, may got more money, but I don't think it helped with the viewership.
No,
you had to pay for Apple TV.
Yeah. I mean, I can get why they did it. It is higher like production quality, and is clearly taken more seriously than like ESPN or like did. But at the same time, it is that kind of ease of access, aside from the games they put on Fox, isn't there. I mean, I know they have a decent number of free games, but that's not going to necessarily get as many people into it, especially when it's still stuck on Apple TV, which is, of the streaming services, probably one of the least popular, I'd guess. I mean, I know I've heard that like a 2 million subscriber number put out for it, but I'm like, I mean, that's still, pretty good, but like, how many of those people are actually consistently watching those games? Like, how many of those is like watching the league as a whole versus like just watching one team? Or like, the viewership per game is not 2 million. That 2 million number is like the all encompassing. It's just annoying that you don't really see any releasing of any like actual viewership numbers outside of like Fox. But
and I think that's also something to discuss on a different episode once the Leagues Cup and Open Cup are over. I guess there's a whole heated debate right now this whole year on which one is bringing in not the more money, but which one is bringing in more viewership. Which to me, I think is more based on where you're looking at geography wise.
Yeah, and I think there's just a very poor job done of promoting Open Cup compared to the Leagues Cup, which we can debate whether that's something intentional or not. But
Yeah.
that's something
And
for
again,
another
that'll
time.
be on. We'll probably do like an. Yeah, we'll definitely probably do an episode on that because there's a lot of things you
Yeah.
could dig up on that. But because it's almost 2 hours into this, let's just quickly go over the Pellegrino Masarasa stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It, as we were talking about just before starting the episode, this seems like to be the most concrete of the suggested or the rumored coaches. I mean, he did make a statement recently saying that there hasn't been any offers. He's not. He has told Hoffenheim apparently that he is looking to stay. The players are backing him at Hoffenheim. Um, but this seems to be the more legitimate, especially when you have Kicker, one of the leading sports media in Germany, who's very, very reliable, is saying that there is an offer and that he is just talking with US Soccer. Now,
Yeah.
Florian Plattenberg, who I highly recommend for anybody who's interested in not just Bundesliga, but also Bayern, follow him. He's saying there is no offer.
Yeah. Um, I'm hoping that there's that the initial report that there is an offer, at least talks, is true, because I would very much like to have him as the coach. Um, Either way, I do think looking at him uh, or reports like this are a positive sign, even if you don't get him, because it, at least to me, indicates that they're looking at coaches who I think are a good option, and are looking at the coaches that I would like to see them be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I do lean towards him probably staying. I do think he'll probably stay at
Mm-hmm.
Hoffenheim. It just makes the most sense to me. But obviously, I would love to see him with the U.S., and I do think it is a positive sign, though, to see reports of talks between them.
Yeah. I know someone said, I think it was tactical manager who said that, or it may have been Loving Yanks, that we should hear something before the September camp. So
Yeah, I
hopefully we
would hope
do,
we
and
would.
hopefully it's not one of those where hopefully they don't come back to MLS and say we're going to have to go with this guy because no one would take the job over in Europe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I would hope we'd hear before September. I really don't want to go into that with an interim manager, just because we only have 2 years before the World Cup, so you need to take advantage of every window we have to look at players.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would hope it's someone along the lines of Matarazzo. At worst, like everyone else says no, I'd want Nancy. I really don't want Giardolo, Curtin. I don't want that at worst. Like, very worst, you have asked every other decent coaching option. I'd want Nancy. That's anyone other than that, I'd be very frustrated with.
Yeah, and I do know it might have been Doug who said it. Someone here within the U.S. that Nancy is moved up above Trujillo for the
Gee, I
job
can't
if it was to
imagine
be an
why.
MLS. Yeah, especially after that game.
Probably something to do with Nancy beating the ever living crap out of him.
Yeah, and that's what everybody was saying. I mean, we were saying that Nancy is a better coach, and he pretty much proved it after that
He proved it twice
spanking that
now.
he gave
Yeah.
LA.
You beat them in
Yeah.
a final, and then you beat the ever living crap out of them in a regular season. It should be blatantly obvious to everyone, including the Federation, that Nancy is better than Trundle. For some reason, some people will, mostly LA fans, will still try and convince you otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. hopefully we'll know something by the September camp, like we mentioned. Hopefully a lot sooner than that. Hopefully by the end of the month. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for us. Make sure you hit that notification and subscribe button. We are still relatively new, so there's plenty of content that will be coming up soon. Not just check out the videos, but check out our shorts because we're also working on developing those as well. But we'll catch you next time.